You know, I was a head volleyball coach at the age of 22, 23. I'm coaching young ladies who are 4 years younger than me, but I never put myself in a position where I was their age. I always I put myself in a position where I could make sound decisions and make good judgments, even though I might have wanted to be in the club. You know, I'm 22, 23. I'm still trying to, you know, figure out my own life, but my parents, my mother was a great support for me and always made me, or reminded me how important it was to be grounded in Christ and to make decisions based on what Jesus would do. And so I've made some bad decisions and good decisions, but at the end of the day, I would tell any young woman or any young man to stay focused on what it is that you want to do. Focus is my key word. I used it as an athlete. I used it in my profession. I use it in my family. You know, focus your faith. You know what you believe in, and don't be shy about it. I love the Lord. He's my Savior. Without him, I'd be nobody. There's times where I've forgotten him, but he didn't forget me. And so I'm reminded daily, you know, that's where my strength comes from, to be optimistic. You know, think about the positives. It's really easy to be negative. It's really easy to walk around with a frown on your face and to be mad at people, but at the end of the day, what does that even do? What can I do to be a blessing to someone? My daughter gets on the school bus and I say,
you do have a daughter.
Yeah, she's 8, and I say every day when I walk her to the bus stop, be a blessing to somebody today. And she says, okay. Every day, be blessed to be a blessing to somebody today. Make a difference. And that's our thing, you know, and I think that's really important. Make good choices. You know, we all are going to do things that we're not going to be proud about. But once you can forgive yourself for it, keep moving, you know, and you learn from it. You know, we learn from our mistakes. We learn from the challenges. We learn from the hurt and pain. Not everybody's on your side. You know, it's what can I say? It's a lonely place to be in leadership.
At the top.
It really is.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure you get criticism.
Oh yeah.
It's a tough thing. It's lonely.
It is. But you know what? One of my girlfriends told me when I called, we're getting ready for the tournament this week, and we get here Saturday, and it's that moment like, we have a pretty big week here. We've got all these student athletes, we got these fans, I got a board of directors, I have sponsors, I got to take care of all these people. When is my daughter coming? And you know, and then I'm freaking out, right?
Yeah.
And so I have an executive crew. They're my listeners. They're the ones that say, get yourself together. It's not that deep. Take a breath. Sit down somewhere. Take a nap. Go get a massage. Why are you freaking out? I mean, you're the commissioner. You have an opportunity. They help me remind me that it's really not that deep, you know, while I'm freaking out. Take one day at a time, you know, and when I take one day at a time, I can make really good choices because I'm focused.
And you know, you are a role model for younger girls and women, because, you know, something I heard from Darryl Green, used to play with the Washington Redskins. He said, everybody's a role model. You can be a negative role model or a positive. So he said, if you're not invisible, you are a role model. And he talked about, you know, a guy that just drove a truck in his neighborhood. He said he was a role model to him, because he saw him working hard every day.
Yeah, and that's the, you know, the whole work ethic is, you know, that's why I say, just do good work. That's what I tell my staff. While you're worried about raises and bonuses and all that, first of all, we're not in a position to do that. We're trying to just survive and be healthy. But do good work, because when you do good work, people see that and notice it. And it may take a while to get there, but do what you need to do so that people know that you're a hard worker and they'll want to be around you. They'll want to hire you. I mean, when that advice was given to me, and I've kind of felt it and witnessed it, because, you know, when somebody hired me and said, I've watched you. I've watched how you worked when you were at the CIAA, and I watched when you was, you know, at Norfolk State, and I want you to come and be the second person on my team. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool, you know, that I have the opportunity and didn't even know it. And then I go there and, you know, the sky is the limit. And same with the NCAA. I never wanted to move to Indianapolis. I never wanted to, I never thought about working at the NCAA because, again, you hear all the things about it. But when the opportunity came, and I love working for HBCUs.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the culture that I love, you
Yeah.
know, and when the opportunity came, it was almost like you have to go. I worked the Division I men's champion tournament, and I was one of 3 of the leadership team. We had a managing director, and my responsibility was external to the building. I'm used to ops, you know, basketball operations, counting chairs, getting teams in, but I got to do a whole different piece. My job was to community relations. I was the one to speak on the behalf of with the tournament and, you know, to bridge the gap between the city and the youth and, you know, all the programming and to really make the NCAA or show that we want to make impact in the community. We don't want to just have a game and get all the revenue, but we want to go in and make sure it's a win-win for all. That was my job, and to connect our sponsors to make sure that they understood that they played a key role in our community and figure out how to put them in place. And that's like, that job, I created it. It wasn't a position. And when the executive vice president, Greg Shaheen, and Tom Jernstead, who, you know, are legends in their own, they would say that's not true, but they really are, because they changed the whole thinking of the game of basketball for NCAA. And they brought me over for the opportunity and just said, you know, we haven't done this before. And so here you go. And I got to create my own space with their guidance. But I mean, when you get to do that,
bringing that influence from HBCUs in there too.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
It's one of those things where, you know, I hope when I leave this earth, you know, that my footprint was left wherever I was, and people could put something in each footprint of what I did there.
What are your footprints so far in the CIAA as commissioner?
You know, I think I really believe in bringing people together. And I hope in the last 17 months, and I feel like our membership, our board, our sponsors feel like we are coming back together as a family. And we're not siloed off, you know, this group here, this group. And that takes a while, you know, and it's nothing to say about what happened in the past. It's just my style. I'm a collaborator. I believe that we all should get along, you know, and that doesn't happen all the time, but to really find ways to connect the dots that we're all in this together, and how can we make what we do best in the best interest of those why we have a job, the student athletes.
Knowing you, I know that you're working on all the other aspects of the CIAA.
We are. You know, it's a total experience in the CIAA. So, you know, my goal is to ensure that the student athletes for the 14 other championships that we have, that their experience is just as great as those student athletes who come here. Now, it's different because, again, this tournament means everything to this conference, stability-wise, visibility, viability. It helps us with all of our exposure. When the tournament does well, then we can do well for 14 other championships.
And the tournament can only do well if you work on it all year.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But we only have one staff, and that's what people probably don't realize. Now, when I worked for Final Four, or women's Final Four, men's Final Four, that was my only focus. I mean, we have 10 people on a staff. For men's, 10 people on the staff, and that's all we do all year. We plan for the Final Four. On my staff, we only have 7 people, and we're planning for this tournament, which is massive. So when we're done with this tournament this week, in 2 more weeks or 3 more weeks, we'll have a bowling championship. And guess what? Those young women have to have the same experience that these athletes have here. And it may be different, but it won't be minimized. It will be the best of the best for them as well. And so 2 weeks ago, we had indoor track. So our staff is planning and managing an indoor track championship. And guess what? That experience for them had to be just as good as it was going to be for this week. So the goal is to ensure that every student athlete that walks in the CIAA has a great experience, and they'll want to come back.
Is this the most high-profile Division II conference?
You know, I'm going to say yes. You know,
yeah. I mean, even the biggest tournament of any Division II tournament.
It is. You know, my colleagues, my other colleague commissioners from other conferences, they're always trying to figure out like how do you guys do this? And I think the history and the legacy that this conference brings to communities has just sold itself. So whether I'm here or not, it exists. The sponsors that have taken part of it understand the return of the investment by being a part of the CIAA in the community we serve. And it's a great opportunity for them to get the exposure they need, but it's even greater for us because they help support scholarships. There's no other conference that I know of, specifically Division II, that distributes scholarship dollars the way that we do. And I think that's pretty amazing. It's actually, again, quite humbling that we're able to do that. And I hope we never take that for granted, because any day now a sponsor could pull out and that could be $150,000 that we don't have. But we've been really blessed to have the relationships that we have.
Talk about where you see this conference going maybe 5-10 years from now. I know you have a vision.
Yeah.
Where do you see this conference?
When I came in, there were three, probably, I would say three key. And I'll put I'll put four, but put the one in the same category. The student athlete experience is most important to me. And I was a former student athlete, and I think if you don't take care of the student athlete, then why do we do what we do? You know, but also making sure that they graduate, you know, and stay in school. So the scholarship dollars are extremely important, that we're able to give back to our schools to support, you know, academic or scholarships for our students. But to see them graduate and to get the conference graduation rates up to compete with the rest of the country is important. Our faculty athletic representatives, we've been talking a lot, and we're going to collaborate to figure out what our schools can do to ensure that our student athletes are graduating at the rate that they need to. The other is the image of the conference is extremely important. You know, we changed our logo last year. We tried to keep it simple, fresh, and still combine some of the elements to not lose the essence of what we've had for years. So you'll continue to see just, you know, how our logos will look. I love our tournament logo this year. It's fresh, it's bright, it's attractive. I love it. And then with our Facebook page, you know, we've got a great PR team that we've refreshed our PR team, and it's been awesome to work with them. I had an opportunity to work with them when I was at the NCAA, and I needed people around me that understood my vision and understood me as a person and a leader that I could bring on without having to explain a lot, and they've jumped on and have taken it. So if you go to our Facebook page, our Instagram, our Twitter, it's fun, it's refreshing. I even tweet all day, every day, whenever I can, when I can remember. So the image is real important, but not just for the conference, for our member institutions, and trying to bring them into the fold. So when you say CIAA, you know Virginia State, Virginia Union, Bowie, Shawan, you know, Johnson C. Smith. You don't have to guess who's a part of our conference. So that's the next step of the imaging. How do we make sure that we expose those 12 schools that belong to us? And then lastly is the financial stability. I got here, when I came here, we were in a deficit, which is interesting because what you don't know, you know, you come into these things, and the board was up front with several things, and you know, but you still find out other stuff that you have to try to manage, and I think it's been fine. You know, the challenges have been tough, but the opportunities are greater. So my hope is that the conference will be in short-term, long-term stability financially.
And speaking of all those schools, will there be any expansion of the CIAA?
We don't know. You know, I think that's part of the discussion when you're talking about the image and you're talking about student athlete experience and you're talking about the stability financial. You know, if you're going to expand, what does that look like for all three of those categories? On whoever you bring, if you bring in a school, what does that school and their student athletes and programs look like? What do they bring to the table? You know, if you're going to add more schools, and that's less distribution unless you get more dollars coming in. So that's a decision for the board. I know that we've been talking about it.
People talking to you.
Yeah, we've been talking about it. I think it's really key that we are clear about where we want the conference to go. We have had interest, you know, but right now we're just trying to make sure that we are stable, you know, in this short term, so that if we do invite somebody in the family, that they can be successful with us. So it's been an interesting ride so far, just to learn about what this conference, where it's been, where we are now, and where we need to go.
Bringing on athletes into this conference, people are saying we don't attract the athletes that we used to in the CIAA. How do you do that?
Yeah, that's a tough question because the opportunities are very different than it was 102 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe even when I played 20-something years ago. There's so many different places that our student athletes can go. They don't have to go to a Division II school, or they don't need to go to HBCU school, because in the past you couldn't go anywhere.
Right.
So the Earl Monroes, instead of fighting, they came to our schools. And so it's, our coaches have to be strategic in their recruiting. They have to find that what makes it compelling for them to want to be a part of this. And what helps us, we get television games. Our kids are being televised, today and tomorrow. Yesterday, our women's championship game will be televised for the first time in a long time on Aspire, which is Magic Johnson's television station, who has invested in our conference. So when you hear that kind of stuff, you need to be able to sell those points and understand that if you come to the CIAA, your exposure is quite unique for the CIAA. So,
and that's all a part of bringing the fans back.
Exactly,
too, right?
and bringing the fans back. So I just think our coaches really have to, when they're recruiting across the board, have to realize what we have and be able to share that when they're selling their school, but also selling the totality of who we are as a conference and what that means if you are. If you do determine to go to, a St. Augustine's University, what does that look for you short and long term?
All right. Well, the CIAA, it's a reunion, right?
It is a reunion.
Yeah.
I told...
even with you and me, right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
This is where people...
Yeah.
This is where, I've ran into a few people like I hadn't seen in years.
Yeah.
And so it's... You never know who you're going to run into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate
Jacqui
it.
McWilliams, CIAA Commissioner. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.